The sun was setting not too far off, creating long shaded areas across the provincial Texan scene. The air was thick with the fragrance of wildflowers and the far-off murmur of cicadas. Bonnie Parker sat on the hood of a dusty Portage V8, her coppery hair getting the last beams of sunlight. Close to her, Clyde pushcart rested up against the vehicle, lighting a cigarette, his eyes examining the unfilled street ahead. "Where to next?" Bonnie asked, her voice delicate yet touched with energy. It was an inquiry they posed to one another oftentimes, consistently moving, never remaining in one spot for a really long time. Clyde enjoyed a puff of his cigarette, extinguishing a tuft of smoke. "We'll travel west, perhaps hit up a few little banks en route. Save the intensity off us for some time." Bonnie gestured, her eyes shimmering with a combination of experience and disobedience. She had fallen head over heels for Clyde for his tough appeal, yet for the feeling of opportunity and disobedience he exemplified. They were sidekicks, bound together by affection and a common hatred for the imperatives of society. As night fell, they drove under a shade of stars, the Portage V8's motor murmuring consistently. Bonnie leaned her head against the window, her brain floating back to how everything started. She had been a server in Dallas, longing for a daily existence past the limits of the burger joint. Clyde had strolled in one warm summer evening, his grin incapacitating and his eyes brimming with guarantee. From that second, her destiny was fixed. Their most memorable occupation was little, a service station on the edges of town. Clyde had arranged it carefully, and it had gone off effortlessly. The adventure of the heist, the surge of adrenaline, and the flavor of opportunity were inebriating. From that point on, they were indivisible, living like there's no tomorrow, consistently out in front of the law. However, their reputation developed, thus did the risks. They had become notorious, their names sprinkled across papers, their appearances put on needed banners. However, through everything, their adoration stayed a consistent, a signal in the tumult of their lives. In the early hours of the morning, they maneuvered into a little, abandoned town. The roads were unfilled, and the structures were dim and quiet. They stopped behind a neglected outbuilding, stowed away from view. Clyde actually looked at his watch. "We'll rest here for a couple of hours, then, at that point, hit the bank at sunrise." Bonnie gestured, her hand laying on Clyde's arm. "Be cautious," she murmured, her voice loaded up with concern. Clyde grinned, inclining in to kiss her brow. Continuously. They sunk into the rearward sitting arrangement, crouched together for warmth. As Bonnie floated off to rest, she felt a feeling of premonition, abiding trepidation that their karma could before long run out. The main light of sunrise crawled into the great beyond, projecting a brilliant tint over the town. Bonnie and Clyde were prepared. They moved toward the bank warily, their eyes dashing around for any difficult situations. Clyde pulled a gun from his jacket, and Bonnie slipped a little gun into her satchel. "Remain nearby," mumbled, pushing the entryway open. The bank hushed up, a couple of tellers and several early clients inside. Clyde moved quickly, his voice instructing as he requested everybody to the floor. Bonnie kept watch, her heart beating in her chest. It was over in minutes, the packs loaded up with money, and they were back in the vehicle, speeding away. Bonnie looked back, alleviated to see no indication of pursuit. Yet, her alleviation was fleeting. As they turned onto the expressway, a crew of squad cars showed up in the rearview reflect, alarms blasting. "Hang on!" Clyde yelled, his foot squeezing harder on the gas pedal. The pursuit was persistent, slugs flying, tires shrieking. Bonnie terminated back, her hands consistent regardless of the confusion. In any case, the chances were against them. The police were shutting in, and their departure courses were waning. Clyde steered off the street, the vehicle crashing through a wall and into a field. They deserted the vehicle, running towards a woods of trees for cover. The sound of gunfire reverberated around them, and Bonnie felt a sharp torment in her leg. She staggered, however Clyde was there, lifting her up, asking all her moving. They arrived at the front of the trees, breathing intensely. Bonnie's leg pulsated, blood leaking through her dress. Clyde tore a portion of texture from his shirt, rapidly bounding the injury. "We'll make it," he expressed, assurance in his eyes. "We generally do." Yet, Bonnie saw the uncertainty in his eyes, the acknowledgement that there was no time to spare. She inclined in, kissing him furiously, as though it were their last. "I love you, Clyde," she murmured. "I love you as well, Bonnie," he answered, his voice breaking. They held one another, drawing strength from their affection. The sound of moving toward strides became stronger, and they realized they were encircled. Bonnie grasped her gun, prepared to battle as far as possible. The last confrontation was fierce and quick. The police slipped upon them, gunfire ejecting. Bonnie and Clyde battled with all that they had, however it was sufficiently not. They fell together, their bodies weaved, their romantic tale finishing in a hail of shots. The fresh insight about their demises spread rapidly, the notorious Bonnie and Clyde brought down finally. However, their legend lived on, a story of affection and disobedience, of two spirits who opposed the world together. As the sun set right then and there, the fields were quiet again. The wildflowers influenced delicately in the breeze, and the cicadas sang their sorrowful melody. Bonnie and Clyde were gone, however their soul waited, a demonstration of the force of affection and the quest for opportunity. In death, as throughout everyday life, they were indistinguishable. Their story would be told for ages, an indication of the red-hot enthusiasm that drove them, the adoration that bound them, and the disastrous destiny that looked for them. Bonnie and Clyde, everlastingly youthful, always free, their names carved into the archives of history.